sort of, to know God's plan at the beginning of every day, to know, okay, who's on your heart for me to pray for today? Who do
Wow.
you need me to reach out to? What
Yeah.
are the things I need to remember when I, meet this patient on my schedule today? And so it being able to start my day with a quiet and the meditation and the prayer, those things really help me to be able to lock into what God has to say. And it's not to say I get it right every time. There's some days I oversleep and I'm like,
Right.
okay, God, like
You're human. You're human. You're human. You're absolutely human. But as you were talking, and that is one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, because we have been journeying through this entire pandemic, COVID-19. And I don't want to labor much on that topic, but you sharing your story, this is one reason I really wanted to bring you on, because we have here in the listening audience, we have a relatable expert in her field who is also a woman of faith and spirituality. And I really wanted
oh
to
wow.
have you on so that a lot of health professionals who may be under the cloud, for the lack of a better words, who are faith based, spiritual, grounded individuals who may have been smothering that operation, you now have heard witness, you now have heard journey into how you can intermarry your faith along with your knowledge and expertise and your skill set without feeling at a place of bias where I can only operate in this way. One, spirit is supernatural and omnipresent always.
Yes.
It is never
Yes.
constrained. So hearing Dr. Jordan's story and her testimony of how even when she expanded her work abroad internationally, that it was her faith and she became, enlightened at another degree of fire and passion, that she knew she could intuitively use her faith and her knowledge and intermarry them. So I am now on fire to hear that you are now in a place that you have the opportunity to share with the world, as we have people tuning in now all across the globe, to become comfortable and confident as medical professionals who are spiritual and grounded in faith.
Yes.
Just amazing, amazing that you shared that and unpacked that in such a relatable way. So we are now celebrating Women's Month, and you have had several leadership positions in healthcare. Being a woman in leadership in healthcare, I know it's tough. I worked in healthcare administration when I lived in Baltimore a few years ago on the administration side, not on the clinical side, but we would have OR meetings. I was a part of the OR department. And every
Mm.
month we had the business meeting with all the tops of every department. And those meetings were very intense meetings. Being a leader and a woman in leadership, what was it like for you stepping into that leadership role in addition to being a physician who cared for your patients? Because now you have the opportunity to lead and to influence, but also at the same time, take care of your patients. What was that leadership dynamic like for you?
It was it was definitely they were experiences that I would say really stretched me. I learned uh, executive functioning skills. Like I learned more about myself. I will say that. I think that anytime you have, leadership responsibilities as a woman, in a lot of cases, for me especially, there weren't a lot of women, and so um, I think about when I was over or co-directed the Maternal Child Health Fellowship. I was thankful to have a co-director who was a man of faith, Alex Wu, who was not only a good friend but a mentor to me, and so we really were an amazing team. I felt like we were able to really like represent the fellowship well and be able to really be the guides and sources of education and things for the fellows who would come through. There were a lot of challenging times. There's fellows who may have struggled or had issues. And so what I tried to do was just um, really be humble in a sense of, okay, I'm not perfect. So anything that's going on in this fellowship, whatever it takes to make it the best it can be, I don't have to, I'm okay to say I was wrong, or I'm okay to say that, there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, let's revise the way that we're doing evaluations or whatever the process is. Like, let's just take it back to the bare bones and figure out, if there are issues, how to make things better. I've always been that way. It's like, I don't care. I never have a problem admitting or saying that I did something wrong or forgot something or whatever, because I know that those are things that help build up my organization. They help build me up and help me to, grow. And so I think just that humility has really helped me. I know that now before I became a faculty member at MacNeal, I was over a clinic site at the organization that I worked for. And that was really tough just because of I was constantly being pulled in different directions. So trying to manage patient care versus being there for the hiring process, when medical assistants and providers would come on, was really tough. What I ended up doing most of the time was just like staying after hours. At that time I wasn't married and I would work, the clinic would close at 6 and then I would be there till like
And you're
10,
still there at 10.
trying to finish stuff. But in saying that, I mean, I went through a lot of burnout. There were a lot of times where, I couldn't do it, it was really hard for me to take time off. I think that I can speak personally as a woman. It was like, I'm so used to giving. I'm always, okay, well, what do you need? What do you want? And the one thing I'm working on is the self-care piece. It's like, I'm constantly pouring out and helping and putting out fires, whether it was when I was over the clinic and even now as a faculty member at MacNeal, I'm constantly giving. It's like, well, what do you need? Who needs OB precepting? What's the patient's issue? And I'm,
Right,
and it's like, okay, I can't keep giving, 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 and then
right.
not pouring back into myself. So I'm learning, and I do think that marriage has helped, like I'm learning to, okay, when I'm at home to like, okay, let's turn the pager off. Let me, put the phone on silent. Let me, get some time in for prayer and okay, let's take that vacation we've been talking about because then it
Yes,
helps me to reset, and it doesn't matter man or woman, but that specifically for me as a woman, I find that being able to just separate from my job and truly rest um, has has not been easy. And so I've been more intentional about it. And I know we weren't going to talk a lot about the pandemic, but that actually, um, apart from all the terrible things that have happened in these
hmm,
last 2 years, but the one of the bright sides for me was that it forced me to slow down. I would have a calendar packed with things to do. I mean, you would,
wow.
and I'm old school. I have a paper little planner, and it was packed. I mean, like every day was
You're
accounted
preaching to the
for.
choir.
You
I'm
know,
old school as well.
the residents laugh because they have everything on their iPhones and stuff, and I pull out my little 3-year planner, and they're like, "What is that?" Just like,
Same here. Same
but
here.
right, but mine is color coded. I mean, I am just like
Stick notes. I have the stick notes.
yes.
Stick notes.
My favorite invention is post-it notes because I'm
Yes.
telling you. So, but in 2020, I mean, it's like my schedule was clear. Like I was working from home some days. I was, still even taking care of patients on the COVID unit. And those were times where, for sure, I was like, God, you got to protect me. Like I'm going into these rooms, I'm seeing patients. Um,
Absolutely.
we didn't have testing at the time, and for me, um, I'm thinking too of my family. I'm like, okay, March, May of 2020, I'm like, we don't know what this virus is. Like I had, we were running low on masks. We didn't have all the proper PPE, and we're going in and out of rooms with these patients who were positive and coughing and just having a hard time. And I would pray every day. I'm like, God, help protect me so that when I come home, I'm not bringing this home to my family. But
Wow.
I made a commitment. I said, God, look, this is such a hard time for these patients. Like, it's not about me. And what would happen is that when the pandemic was going on, when the COVID numbers were really high, we had this option where we could just call patients on the phone. You know, you didn't have to go in the room if nothing changed in their situation, if they were still on the same amount of oxygen or whatever. But I knew God was calling me to more, and I purposed to see every patient. Like I went in the room, I wanted to hold their hands and talk to them and make sure that they had a face. Even if I had a big face shield on, I didn't care. I was like, I want to go in. Let me pray with you. I had some and still have these little like prayer booklets that I would give, not to everybody, but just as I would talk to patients, if I could, you know, if the Lord moved me to give them little like prayer books on healing or victorious living, like I still do pass those out.
Love
But
that. Love that.
I was like, I want to be God's hands and feet. You know, I want to go in and talk to patients. And every time, Sean, like they would tell me, like, everybody just keeps calling. No one comes in. What, you know, am
Wow.
I just in seclusion? You know, no one wants to touch me, you know, and I said, look, these are
Wow.
crazy times. Please know that you are valued. You know, but we're figuring this all out. I said, but I, I make this promise to you that I will come in. You know, like I can't speak for everybody else, but because, you know, we have nurses and wonderful people, respiratory therapists who are responsible for so many people and they can't
Yeah.
come in and out all the time. But I said, look, I don't, you know, no matter what, I will come in and listen to you and make sure, you know, that you're doing okay. And I feel like they appreciated that.
I
Um,
love this. You're at the perfect space where I want to go. So you're segueing into, you're flowing perfectly. I'm so glad that you had time to come on. And we're almost at the close of our segment. I'll have to have you back again. But
oh
what I
yeah.
do with all of my guests, because you've shared so many profound and you've given so much insight, at the close of every segment, I always ask every guest to share a word of inspiration, a word of empowerment, a word of encouragement to the listening audience before we close out. So, if you could, as you were flowing just then, I could feel the passion and I could feel your sincerity on how you connected with each and every patient. And so, as we have the listening audience today, if you could, in your own way, share a word of inspiration and encouragement, because even though we're coming through this, there will be something else. And in order for us to go through the seasons and trials of life, I do believe that we have to be armed for every season. So if you could, Dr. Jordan, share with the audience a word of inspiration or encouragement before we close.
I would just say that, you know, don't fret small beginnings. Don't allow yourself to be discouraged if things don't necessarily look or feel the way you think they should. And know that you matter, that the smile you give, you know, and I think nowadays when everyone, some people are still wearing masks, you may not be able to see someone's smile or face fully, but you matter, and it could be a smile or an encouraging word or something that you can share with someone that can really make a difference and change their lives. You never know the impact that you may have on someone around you. And so be mindful of that. And also just the importance of taking the time to take care of yourselves. Make sure that you're getting the rest you need and properly taking care of yourself so that you can be all that God's created you to be. I think that, yeah, at times do get hard and we have been through a whole lot of change in the last few years, but um, you know, I'm definitely just a firm believer in um, the power of prayer, the power of um, just hearing and knowing the amazing things that God can do in and through us. And so, you know, whatever you're being you're struggling with or feeling like um, you know, your hands are tied or there are things that you want to accomplish and can't do it, just slow down, take some time to really um, you know, To me, I'm like, when in my ministry, I have Gloria Global Healing, it's international